On the reaction from the government on this, the Prime Minister's initial criticism was pretty strong. Now he's reaching out, though, to the Chinese community on WeChat, emphasising it's not the Chinese people Australia has a problem with. Has he got the tone of this right this week?
Look, I've got no criticisms to make of the Prime Minister this week. I do of many government members who, not today, not this week, but over the last couple of months have really added more fuel to the fire. We need to stand firm on our values. We need to say quite clearly that the tweet was unacceptable, that it was inflammatory, that it was offensive. But I don't think we need to be adding more fuel to the fire. I think we need to be using every channel possible to try and normalise and improve the relationships, if for no other reason than for all the businesses in Australia who are going to be hurting as a result of the disruption to trade with China. Absolutely imperative.
Just on government, other government MPs speaking out, though, isn't the importance, and what Australia should be able to say to China is, at a government level, Prime Minister, Foreign Minister and so on, here is our official response, here's our official attitude to things. If there are backbenchers that speak out, well, guess what? We live in a democracy. Surely that should be something China needs to accept happens in Australia.
Look, absolutely no question about the fact we live in a democracy. We want people, we want our politicians to be able to speak their mind. But it's an issue of volume and tone, and it's also about the fact that you've got a series of senior government backbenchers in positions of influence who have been, for whatever reason I do not know, absolutely a part of the machinery of inflaming tensions with China. And we've got a Foreign Minister who's vacated the field, and I think that has been a part of. Now, I'm absolutely not saying that China is not at fault in this. Absolutely they are.
But you're saying Australia is as well.
I don't think we've helped. In many respects, I don't think we've helped.
This is heard from Beijing, and they hear someone say, oh, well, our own MPs aren't helping. And you say senior government backbenchers. They're backbenchers.
Yeah, but the point is this.
They can speak out if they want. We have an official government response and another response. You're saying they shouldn't speak out.
Go and talk to the businesses. Go and talk to the businesses that I talk to, and they express concern that we've got this wall of noise with one of our major trading partners in the middle of a trade dispute, which is inflaming tensions, not cooling things down, and not making it easier for them or anybody else to work the back channels to try and normalise things. Now, Tom, I don't think that's helpful, and I think a part of the problem is the Foreign Minister has vacated the field. It should be the job of the Foreign Minister front-footing the government's communication.
Why do you say vacated the field?
We hear just about nothing from the Foreign Minister on these issues, and that has left the space open for a range of government backbenchers to be filling the void, and that has not clearly...
Isn't the main job, though, reaching out in official capacity, not necessarily just making comments to try to counter backbenchers?
God knows what she's saying behind closed doors to her own backbench, but it's clearly not working. Because we're in a situation which is making the tensions worse.
I mean reaching out to China.
I want to emphasise this point. What I'm relaying to you is the frustration that many, many hundreds of businesses are expressing who have a trading relationship with China, our largest trading partner, and they are saying this is not helping. We're in the middle of a trade dispute, and it seems that members of our government are throwing fuel on the fire. And this is our economic relationship, and jobs and businesses are at stake. So surely we can take this opportunity to cool things down a bit.
Partly the tweet, but also the list of 14 so-called grievances show that it's not just Australia saying things a slightly different way. It's the core elements of our democracy that China disagrees with. It doesn't want Australian media to be critical of China.
Sure.
It doesn't want backbenchers speaking out. It doesn't want us to decide what to do with our 5G. These are non-negotiables that upset China.
Sure. Look, I'm not saying for a moment, Tom, that we don't have differences. Of course we do. But we've had differences for well over 70 years now. We've managed to negotiate those differences for well over 70 years now. What has happened in the last 7 years? How have we come to this point?
Well, let's pull out one of the examples, right? So 5G, we made a decision on that and essentially went first in the world. Other significant countries followed, and China said, right, Australia started this, we want to punish you. Anything wrong with what we did there? Would you take anything back?
Probably not on the 5G.
Probably
but it's
not.
a series of... No, I know where you're going here, and let me just jump straight to the point. I don't think the government handled the issue around coronavirus as well as could have been done. Now, I want to make it quite clear. Absolutely, there needs to be an international inquiry that gets to the bottom of how the virus originated and how it spread so quickly. But the smart thing for Australia to do, given our diplomatic and our economic exposure in China, the smart thing for Australia to do would have been to ensure that before we stuck a foot forward on this, we had an international coalition. It wasn't Australia speaking out and on its own.
Well, we got one.
Had a whole range. We had a whole range of countries coming forward together at the same time and saying, this is what we need in the interest of science.
We also got one, though. Even China voted for it in the end.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone can say that was because Scott Morrison stood out, probably more driven by domestic politics than international relations, and stuck his head up on this one. And what we can be absolutely sure, Tom, we can be absolutely sure is it has impacted us economically, so not the smartest way to have gone about it.
I just want to ask quickly about industrial relations changes. We're sort of reading the tea leaves at the moment, but on the Better Off Overall test, which is a pretty significant part of this, it seems as though the government might not be quite as rigid. One example being that there was actually an agreement, in fact, so not a hypothetical, where thousands of workers were better off. One worker wasn't. Whole deal had to be scrapped. Is that too rigid?
Look, I don't want to preempt the outcomes of the discussions that have obviously been going on between the ACTU, the business community and the government on this. What we want to ensure is that we have a system that works for business, works for workers. There is no secret that the bargaining system hasn't been working well. It hasn't been working well, and there are changes that probably need to be made to ensure that it can work better and get better outcomes for workers, whether that's around the tests that are in place or whether that's around the procedures that are in place. But I will make this point. I think we've reached a point in industrial relations where it's quite clear that the capacity of workers, particularly low-paid workers, to bargain collectively and get a better wage outcome has gone backwards. It's gone backwards significantly. And you've got a range of figures from the Reserve Bank governor to serious business leaders are saying, we've got a problem with wages. But nobody is saying, well, actually one of the things we need to do here is to ensure that workers can bargain collectively to get a decent outcome. So whatever pops out, it's got to ensure that workers are able to bargain collectively and get a better outcome, because that's in our economic interest.
I guess an interesting side note to that is that people just aren't joining unions in the same numbers as they were, but that might be a conversation for another day.
Happy to have that conversation and what the reasons for that are. Because when you survey workers, do they like the fact that unions exist, and would they join a union if they were able to?
We'll have to make another day. I'm going to get in trouble soon. We've gone over.